But when we have an opportunity to turn the camera on and tell a story, there's a little sense of vulnerability in each one of us when the camera's pointed at us. All right, guys, Sandy Cerami coming at you live here. We are doing the G Street Hustle thing in New York City. To my right, I got the man, Mr. Scott Joseph of J&L Marketing, and the host of Move, Crush, Count, one of the hottest podcasts out there. I don't mind saying.
I think it's ranked number one almost in every business podcast category.
I like that. GC might.
I just made that up.
We'll see. It's okay. We'll make up the categories too. To my left, we've got the 800-pound gorilla in the Albany market, Mr. Paul Lynch, 10-time in a row Chevrolet Dealer of the Year. I don't know anybody else can say that in the country.
There might be a couple, but you count them on one hand.
All right, good. So we are in rarefied company here right now. We got the man making the magic happen behind the lens, Mr. Hollywood Capone, and we got off to my right, you can't see him, but another genius in the making. We got Zach Joseph, Scott's son, here, and this is kind of like the episode after an episode. You're going to notice that this background may look familiar. I want to tell you that there is a great episode coming up on Move, Crush, Count, MCC Nation, as Scott talks about all the time, with Mr. Paul Lynch to my left. So I was piggybacking here, taking copious notes as these two guys were going back and forth with respect to a very hot topic, and I'm not going to give it away here, but you have to make sure you tune into that episode. It is worth watching, and I guarantee you, if you write that shit down, you're going to have great notes to help you explode your business. In the meantime, what we want to talk about today, fellas, is two things. Social media as it relates to what's going on showroom floors and service drives right now, and the adoption rate that we see, which is a little bit slow, and then the power of storytelling when it comes to telling the story behind a dealership or a dealer group as it relates to the dealer principal or the founder, the leadership in the organization, their core competencies, their core values, how we can use social media and storytelling to help advance that narrative in the recruiting world and then also in the marketing world. So let's talk a little bit for just a second, Scott, because you and I have talked about this a lot, about dealers and business owners not wanting to get in the way of their business and moving themselves to the forefront and in front of the camera. And we talked about that as far back as almost a year ago when you had your podcast that you were putting together. Talk a little bit about your hesitation.
Well, I think not for all business leaders, but I think for a lot of them, there's a hesitancy to get in front of the camera. I know for me personally, what I didn't want is everyone think that I am the high school girl doing a million selfies and just trying to promote myself. I didn't want people thinking I was doing this for me. Right. I was too worried about what everybody else thought. So I shied away from that and tried to just let it take care of itself. But in today's age, if you're not out in front and making it public and telling your story and finding content and especially on video, you kind of get lost in the shuffle and you disappear. And so I think it's something I think every business leader has to get over, I'm not saying that's what stops people from doing it, but for me, and I think there are a lot of people like it, you got to get over that worry about what other people think.
100%. I mean, I know that Gary Vee talks about it a lot. And I've talked to a lot of business owners and dealer principals that have that same concern, that where they don't want to be the focal point. They want to make sure the focus is on their customers, on their people, on their business. But I believe in the power of storytelling. I talk to you all the time in terms of, in a leadership capacity. You're not afraid to get in front of the camera at this point. I know you were a little hesitant early on, but you know how important the story is and how important it is for you to convey messaging to your people as well, correct?
Yeah, I think there was some fear. I think most people don't raise their hand and just say, I don't like to do something because I'm scared. But I wasn't comfortable in front of the camera early on. It almost like froze up. But it leads into a lot of what Scott was saying, as far as you don't want all the
attention,
all the lights on you and all the attention on you. You don't want your people to think that you're trying to take all the accolades and all the hard work. So I'm constantly preaching about that. I think that there's a necessary evil though too, because if you are in the trenches, you're there every day. You have those good relationships with your employees. That stuff is felt inside the store, and more as far as automotive is online retailing and business that's being done and worked on the outside of the store, not internally. So I think obviously people know who you are, what your personality is inside your house. But if you want to maximize what your potential is and really take advantage of all the opportunities that are on the outside, nobody knows who Scott Joseph is, and then maybe they do now because of his presence and his name in the market. But until he got out there, nobody knew that except for his employees and his family members and friends. Until that presence is out there. So I think it's got to be shared, but it's got to be done.
Absolutely,
it's got to be done professionally.
Yeah.
I was at a small conference, and we were asked to introduce ourselves. And we got our company's decent size. And so, the perception I always had, and this a few years ago, but the perception I always had was every dealer at least knows who we are. Which is very egotistical and arrogant.
We're all guilty.
I get
of
into
that.
this conference, and I'm introducing myself, and these people are asking questions of me, and I'm like, we've been at NADA 15, 20 years in a row. We've done it.
I think it's the best booth at NADA. That's just my opinion, but I love the booth.
How do you not know? I'm thinking, this is in turn, I'm thinking, these people don't have a clue who I am or what my company even does. And so it made me realize, holy crap, we're not as popular or well known, and shame on me. That's my fault,
That's
right?
exactly the right
and
answer.
so,
Correct.
That's what finally I just said, I got to break through this and quit using all these excuses as to why I'm not doing it, and just need to get out there and do it.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree with you more, and it is a matter of we get a little bit myopically focused on the world that we have, or the sphere of influence that we have in front of us, and the world is so much bigger. I think that slight shift in perspective is what creates a little bit of a sense of ease with folks that are in that leadership capacity to get in front of the camera, because it's not a matter of, hey, I'm going to go do the Papa John's commercial. Maybe that's a bad example, but Papa John out there talking about his pizzas in the Super Bowl halftime commercial. What I see happening on the social media side is that we actually get a chance to tell the real story, the story behind what they see in all the advertisements, etc. And there's something authentic and original to the content that resonates with the audience. So I see it's an opportunity for you to use third-party perspective to validate who you are and why you are doing what you're doing. Does that make sense?
I think absolutely. I believe it. Scott sells advertising and marketing, right? If I was a dealer and I took a day and blocked out, or I took a couple days, blocked out 2 days, let's say, and brought in 4 guys that owned advertising and marketing agencies, sat down, let them do their sales pitch. They're all going to have their strengths and their weaknesses, but it's real. And most of the time, it's going to boil down to which one do I think I have the best personal connection with. Along with, is their product, just
Sure.
as good, if not better, than the rest. But it's going to come down to a personal thing, and I think you want to buy from someone you like, someone that you feel like there's a level of trust almost right out of the gate. And I think how can you believe that you're going to have that when people don't know who you are?
Absolutely.
I think that there's definitely a personal and emotional attachment behind being a real person, not just going on there and saying this is what our offer is or this is what we sell. But I'm also a real person with real moral values and a real moral compass, and this is how I treat people, and this is what our business does, and we do things the right way.
Sure.
And I think that goes a long way.
It's a great way to convey, I think, core competencies and core values in an organization.
Well, I wanted to add that if J&L was to come in, you would only hear strengths.
Absolutely. But that's the point, Scott. Like in every pitch, when we're sitting across from a potential prospect or a client, everything is pitch, right? That's the way it
Correct.
goes. But when we have an opportunity to turn the camera on and tell a story, there's a little sense of vulnerability in each one of us when the camera's pointed at us, and I think people love that. It's a healthy dose of realism, if you will, not reality, realism on the part of the subject of the camera, the lens. You know, so that's where I see people start to connect. It's like, that's really a human being, and there is a story behind it. It's not just this wildly successful guy who created a absolute behemoth in terms of advertising and marketing. It's like there's a human being there that started, by the way, doing 50,000 miles a year with one other person, humping the whole time to build a business.
That's right.
Right? So people need to know the backstory. And it's one of the things that I continue to drill into my clients is that I want them to tell their story.
It humanizes the business.
Yes.
You know, it makes it personal. And we did an episode with Corky Taylor,
Right?
the owner, Peerless Distilling Company. So great bourbon and rye.
Yeah.
They do a great job of creating a unique customer experience, and it's really about the tour. But the whole tour, what makes a great bourbon tour a great tour isn't the process they're teaching you on the tour. It's the history
Absolutely.
and the story that you're being told as to how that came about and how their product did. That's what gets you so
No question.
into it. And so I was talking to him, and I brought up a story. Years ago, we went out to Napa. I think it was prior to an NADA, and went a day or two up there first. Visited all the different vineyards. And so they all tell their story, right? Met up with one, and just this last year, he happened to be coming, he's the mayor of a small community up there, and happened to be coming to Louisville for a mayor convention. He calls us and says, hey, I'm going to be in town for this convention. I was wondering if you guys wanted to host a wine dinner party at your house. I'll supply all the wine. So my wife's like,
That's
yeah.
a trick question, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. We were like, yeah, we're in. So he brings all this wine. So out of all the couples there, all right, I think I want to say there were 6 couples. 2 of us were wine drinkers. And I'm a bourbon drinker, so I drink wine, but I'm not like a collector and like storing and stuff
I like drinking
that.
it better than collecting it anyway.
I mean, we've got a lot of bottles, but it's not like some people have got massive cellars. And so he comes in, so that means 4 couples don't really even,
Right.
they drink it, but it's just, I'll have my glass at dinner, you know? And only when they're out to dinner.
Right.
So he goes through, I'm not even going to try to do that. It was one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard.
He told it the way he told it because it was real and it was his.
It was incredible.
Yep. You couldn't tell
So
his story.
it's so incredible. He's actually going to be a podcast guest on an upcoming thing. He's got a castle. Part of the story is this castle he owns in Italy. And I'm hoping to shoot the podcast there.
It's funny because you know what I call people like that though, real quickly? Friends.
Yes, and that's
Right.
exactly what I do consider him now.
Yeah.
And so, but the point to this is, he did such an incredible job with this story. All 6 couples joined the wine club.
Absolutely.
We're all getting wine. Some of us
Sure.
don't even. Half of these people don't even drink it that much, and they're getting 6 to 8 bottles every quarter shipped to their house.
That is a
because
great
they were just so
story.
in.
It's a great story because it speaks to the social and the emotional aspect of business. And it's a lot of times because we're in a world that gets so, we've been Googleized. Everything is transactional, right? And so, I just made that up, by the way, Googleized.
Yeah.
A little note there on camera. We've been Googleized. Like everything is so transactional. We want all the attribution reports, what led to what. At the end of the day, human beings are screaming for a social and an emotional experience. And when they can identify with us and relate to us on that level, it creates a much deeper connection to our businesses, to our brands, and to our people. And that's very sustainable. It's sticky. It's very sticky. So I love that example because it's perfect.
I think it's an easier way to differentiate yourself.
Right.
So you guys both are big on company culture, do an outstanding, you're teaching it, you're applying a lot of this stuff and having great success. And so your people and your culture is an easy way to differentiate yourself, and so is, but that goes back into wanting that personal connection, right?
Right.
That story does that. So if everything's going so transactional, then an easy way to stand out is to make it more personal and make it more human without slowing down and complicating the process. You still got to do it faster, quicker, and easier.
Right. We can't get in our own way
Correct.
as a result of it.
Yes.
But I think it's when it's natural and when it's real, it becomes very easy to use that as a tool.
When I asked him, so we were down in Arsenal getting a bottle, and I asked him, I said, I have to ask you, because I watched what you did in this story, because this is the sales and the market. I said, I want to know who taught you that process and that concept. I said, because you were doing this.
You were in a funnel.
I'm watching it, right? I pay attention to everything like that.
Right.
And so he goes, no one. And I could tell by the way you're saying it. I believed him.
Right.
He wasn't taught. It was real for him. It was very
genuine.
honest.
Genuine and
so,
authentic.
we had a guest on here earlier that talked about having a personal vetted interest, starting your business for a real reason, right? For yourself, you're more motivated, you're more in that way, and I think that's what it was for him.
Not just starting the business to spin it in 3 years and
Correct. Christopher
go
Creek,
public.
by the way, is the vineyard.
Yeah.
So.
Christopher Creek?
Yes.
All right, good. So make a note of that. As a matter of fact, I will make a note of that. So let's talk a little bit about that. When we talk about the power story, and I think the bulk of my audience is the dealership world, as you know, and I see a lot of dealers that are hesitant to get in front of the camera. Having the ability, and by the way, we're in an industry where it's tough to be vulnerable, right? Because there's a lot of times, especially when this industry is under attack, where we feel vulnerable. Having to do that in front of the camera becomes the biggest challenge, but the reward, the payoff is so big. I see example after example of where vulnerability actually pays off in the long run, because it actually attracts the very people that we're looking for. It also gives you scalability in terms of your recruiting possibilities. You were talking during the segment that you shot with Scott for MCC about the fact that you were looking to hire the very top level best players, and we talked off camera because we were dropping content all over the floor here today, as we normally do, about the fact that you think those folks are whose eyeballs we'll be able to attract by doing this. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I think that once you start to share your culture socially, we talked earlier about when you run a really good store, there's an energy that someone feels right when they walk in the showroom.
You can cut it with a pair of scissors.
That's if you're on site and you're actually in the facility. What you want to do is project that out, and what better way? It's free. You can project it out through social media. If done properly, I think you can project that, and then when and if they show up, it's in perfect alignment.
Yeah.
And then you've cast a lot wider net, a massive net.
You're a vice president of a multi-rooftop dealer group, very successful in the Albany market. What is your position with respect to your people using social media and their phones on the showroom floor in the service drive as it relates to your business? There's do's and don'ts, I really believe, out there. What are your do's and don'ts in that regard?
We want them to clean it up. We want them to walk a neutral line. We don't want anything real political on there, or anything offensive or anything like that. So if you're an employee of ours, your social media should be professional. Should be up to a level of expectation of the place that you work. But we want you to put as much content on as possible.
Good.
Not always, and we really don't want like hooks or like what our special is, like run an Equinox.
That's noise. Then Scott talks about that all the time.
Explorer lease ad, and that's nonsense.
Yeah.
We want more, real content like video walkarounds, how to pair your Bluetooth, things that customers want. Some of the things that we do in the store, whether we're giving away to a charity or we've got our luncheon, Christmas luncheon, or our dealer of the year luncheon. There's always something going on at the store. Getting as much of that way. The Corvette 2020 Corvette launch, that was a massive social media.
Hollywood has an interest in the new Corvette, that's
everywhere.
for sure.
So we want as much of that as possible. I tell them that they should check in every single day, because you don't really pay attention till you always got to be thinking about when you are going to buy something, or you're going to spend your money. Don't think about your own industry, but when you go out and are going to buy something, do you listen? Are you listening to mattress ads every time you hear them? No. You're only when you're in need of a mattress. So even though it feels like it's so routine and repetitive, that you're doing the same thing every day, there's different people listening every day.
Absolutely.
You know? And it has to be every day. So we want, like, when people time in at our tour, you know, punch their time clock, we want them to check in on social media. I don't just want to check in. I'd like to check in to be with some kind of, you know, picture content or video content, and then some type of educational post that's, whether that's a walk around or how to use your Bluetooth, something like that. And then, you know, anything up and beyond that is at their own discretion. New inventory, hot pieces of inventory, things like that. And then anything that promotes the overall store culture and promotes them individually, because I don't think you can shine the spotlight bright enough on your employees, and the more people that know your employees and know what they do and they do it at a high level, I think is a positive for both them and the store.
I would agree. I hear some of the concerns out there, and they're valid, are, you know, we don't want
our competitors recruiting
our competitors recruiting our people. I hear that all the time. We're not going to put our salespeople or our managers up on the website.
You don't have to worry about that.
I agree with you.
That's not. You should never fear that.
If your culture is sticky enough where they don't want to leave, and we've done a great job with them, would you agree?
They're recruiting them anyways.
Yeah.
They are.
It doesn't matter if they're on social. There's not a dealer in the world that doesn't know which are the good salesperson, which are the good salespeople at the various dealerships around them. You know who your competitors are, and you can say, this is their top guy, this is their you don't need social media to tell you that.
Do you know
word gets
before-
out. It's a
My-
small
That's such a great point.
My top guys are going nowhere. I'm not worried about
Exactly.
that at all.
That's exactly the point. And so if you do have a concern out there about your people being picked off, it's up to us, I think, as business owners to make sure we've created an environment and a culture where they don't want to leave. But to your point before, they're going to come after them anyway. I can pick up the phone right now with no social media whatsoever, no internet whatsoever, call the receptionist and say, hey, I was in there yesterday, I was speaking to a salesperson. They said they were the #1 salesperson on the floor. I can't remember their name. Could you just share with me that person's name and connect me to them on the phone? That's how hard it is. So if they want to, you're laughing, but I've done it.
I'm sure.
You've done it too, I'm sure. You know, so it is a concern, but it shouldn't, I don't believe, stop us today from actually getting out there and using social media to that regard.
When the social thing just started getting started and just hopped on LinkedIn, I had the same fear. Oh, people are going to try and recruit our people. I asked our people to keep their contacts private.
Yeah, sure.
Don't make them public,
Right.
you know, so no one can say and bounce around and just
They'll
go
find them
from
anyway.
one. Well, that comes from fear and a lack of understanding of how social media really
Right.
works.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've come a long way. And I look back and I'm just embarrassed by it, but I can appreciate where a lot of these dealers, that's where they're coming from.
Of course.
I mean, I've tried to talk to a lot of general managers. I want to get them on the show and this and that, and they can't.
Right.
The dealer won't let them.
Yeah, I've had those as well. No doubt.
And in fairness to dealers, I will say this. I am. This is going to sound awful, but I am very fortunate that my 3 stores are not where I live.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine the pressure
Absolutely.
of always having to be on? In other words, when you own a store in your own community, no matter
You're
where
well
you
known.
go,
Yeah.
you are on. And if you're now out there on video as a general manager, it exposes you to a lot more people. When you go into that grocery store, our GM in Johnson, he's almost like a celebrity almost. I mean, because he's front and center in everything we do video-wise. He's well respected, but he's always got to be on.
Yep.
You know, and I have moments where I'm not always on, and I'm upset
Zach was
or in a
sharing
bad
couple of
mood.
those with
Yeah,
me off camera before.
he sees it a lot, you know. And so so that's a challenge.
No question.
If you're someone that respects your privacy and this and that, but at the same time, if you want to grow your business, it's something that's the life you chose.
It becomes
and I think it's
necessary-
still you have to do it.
Yeah, it becomes a necessary quote unquote evil, if you will.
And the more attention, the better, you know, and good or bad, you know, as long as you handle the bad the right way, and which is not to try to defend yourself online and
That's we've had those conversations right offline.
acknowledge it and move on.
No question.
Yeah.
Yes, sooner left in the dust,
Yeah.
the better. But yeah, I mean, it is a serious challenge for us today in this industry. But there are so many upside benefits. You know, we talk about recruiting, we talk about, you know, communicating, and you talked about the power of communication in your organization, top down. I like to communicate from the inside out to our potential market. And by the way, with the advent of the internet, our potential market is everywhere.
Yeah.
You can deliver a car to you know, California if you needed to, Hawaii if you needed to.
Let me ask you this. Tell me 5 top GMs in this market,
In
not counting you.
in the New
Albany.
York market.
New York area.
Oh my! I mean,
Give me 5 names.
Benstock.
Yeah.
Patron.
Yeah.
Everyone you're going to name is going to be myself. I don't
Yeah.
want to sound egotistical.
I
but
said you can't
Yeah,
name.
you can't
Matt?
name myself.
Matt Bibbo,
Matt
Eric
Bibbo.
Ruby, sure.
Exactly.
All right.
And they're guys that got their name out there.
But-
you know,
but-
and the success of their store.
But at the same time, if they had not got their name out there, all right, you still would have known of these people. Before
By the
social.
representation of their store.
Thank you. It's a small community.
No
We
doubt.
all know. So, the advice I would give to dealers on the social is I think it needs. The internet is one. Embrace it. Look at the opportunities it provides.
Yeah.
Take advantage of them, because no one needs the internet to recruit and take your people from you.
Agreed.
It's just.
Yeah.
If they have a phone, they can do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's been going on since the beginning of time.
Yeah,
Correct.
no question, no question. We're coming up on hard break over here. We do have to pay the bills, so pay attention to what we share with you in between segments here. But for the time being, we got my man, Mr. Paul Lynch, VP over at DePaula Auto Group, and we got my man, Mr. Scott Joseph, CEO of J&L Marketing. We'll be back in just a second on the 6.